Okay, it is 7 o'clock, and I want to welcome everybody who is attending this program. The members who are online, I think this is a very interesting topic and one that I'm very eager to listen to. And for the public who have joined us, you can always join our programs because they generally are accessible to the public. Now, our program director may have a comment to make about that, but I want to welcome everyone. And at this point, turn it over to Cheryl Duvall, who is our program director, and she will do the remaining introductions. Cheryl?
Thank you, Tony. And it's great to see everybody. I'm sure other people will be dialing in. As Tony said, I'm the program director for CAPCA, Cheryl Duvall. We do host monthly programs typically, except for August, we'll be taking a break. And then in November, we have our general meeting, which is members only. And then we take a break in December. But we invite you to join us, which is typically the fourth Monday of every month. So next month, we will be meeting on Monday, July 22nd at the same time. And we'll be hearing Ryan Wartick, who will be presenting Farewell to Traditional Nautical Charts. They're expected to be phased out by January of next year. So this is a very timely topic that many of us need to know more about. So join us next month for that. And before I turn this over to Dave to introduce our speaker, we have a few housekeeping notes. Please use the chat to tell us where you're calling in from. We'd like to know where our listeners are. And if you're on a boat somewhere and you're typically in Annapolis or Baltimore or anywhere, just tell us where you are on your boat. That would be great. Please put yourselves on mute if you would. We can mute you, and we will if we have to, but it is helpful if you go ahead and put yourselves on mute. We also wanted to alert you to the Zoom experience is a little different on a computer versus a tablet. But one thing that you can do is go to where it says view options, and you can choose if you want the whole gallery or you just want to see the speaker. You can also pop it out so it's not covering up your presentation if you're on a computer. So just play around, see what kind of options there are for you to maximize your enjoyment and your experience here. And then finally, if you would put some your questions in the chat, I'll be monitoring the chat for Dave and Mike. Because they're going to be, Dave's older is going to be interviewing Mike Singer, our speaker. So we want to be able to use the chat for questions, and then I'll interrupt them if it's timely, or if we'll just wait for the end. And then one more comment before I turn it over to Dave. Dave Oler, Bob Thompson, and Hillary Howe are members of the program committee with me. And we work very hard to bring these topics, interesting topics and timely topics to our members and the maritime community. And many months ago, we did secure the U.S. Coast Guard to speak on May 20th. And we secured them, I think, in February, and we waited till May, and it was May 20th when they spoke. And you can always go to CAPCA's YouTube channel, by the way, go to our website, find the YouTube channel to see any of our past programs. So you can view them because they're being recorded like this one is. And on May 20th, that is actually when the Coast Guard helped in the movement of the dolly to the port. So, right, Mike, I think I have that date right. It was May 20th. And that evening, is that right?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
You don't have the exact date.
Off the top of my head, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's it. So that evening we had a program that we had scheduled with them for that, for months. And we were supposed to have 3 speakers, and one of them still was able to present because the other 2 had been involved with the dolly, which is so interesting. And wow. Here we are today, and the dolly moved yet again on the day of a CAPCA program. So
that is kind of crazy.
Stay tuned with CAPCA because we are so timely. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave, and Dave will introduce Mike. So thank you so much, Mike, for being here, and we're so excited to have you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. 4900 block of I-695 at the Key Bridge. Report of possible vehicle in the water. Harbor Rescue Alarm 695, units respond, fire ground 4, engine 57, rescue 1, SWAT 26, truck 6, medic 9, battalion chief 1, EMS 6, battalion chief EMS, fire rescue boat 1, fire rescue boat 2, dive team coordinator, safety officer 4, SOC 1 responds, 4900 block I-695, for a possible vehicle into the water at the Key Bridge, 140.
So with that, I would like to introduce Mike Singer to our club, and thank you to Captain Alicia for setting this up, making the connection. Mike, the floor is yours. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm actually a NASA designer by trade, so have no professional ties to the maritime community, ironically. But my wife and I moved to a home on the water about 8 years ago, and we could see directly out to the shipping channel. Now, I've fished these waters with my dad when I was younger, and I've seen ships go by, but being a little bit older, plus 50 years, and really curious about how things work. And so you start to see the ships go by and get curious, and what does that one do, and why are they coming or going, and start looking for information, and it's really not easy to find, right? And as much money as the port makes, it's not really a cottage industry, but if you're not involved with the port, there's a lot of people that don't know a lot of details about it. So I found it kind of hard to find information and wanted to find a way to provide it. And so after weeks of indecision and losing sleep, I founded the Ship Watchers Facebook group on August 17th, 2017.
And one of the things I like about reading the description of the Ship Watchers is you're markedly apolitical and
Yes.
dedicated to Baltimore shipping, content focused. One of the things I think this world could definitely use more of.
Right, because there's certain things that that are not good to talk about, right? It just causes problems. So when you're moderating a community, we're all passionate about it. We're all like ship geeks, as a joke. But when you want to keep a community a nice place, when you don't want your community to be snarky and nasty like the rest of the internet, and obviously political issues just have their own problems. So the politics is a complete no starter. I mean, you'll just get outright removed from the group if you insist on talking politics, because it's troublesome. And I don't do this by myself. We have a lot of help from some great people, and so we all we all have lives, we all work, we all have social lives and family, and we just don't have time to deal with the problem. So just say no politics, and there go a lot of problems out the window.
It's been a great group to be a part of and to follow.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So a little history of the Port of Baltimore. Was officially founded as a port by the General Assembly in 1706. The colonists took advantage of a natural deep draft port. It was well protected, and it became an excellent location for trade.
And
Mike, you said when we talked earlier that you had a good story about the B&O Railroad.
I have a little nugget that people might not have heard before. And the only reason I know this is because before I was a ship geek, I was a railroad geek. And so probably like a lot of guys, young men. You know, you had your little train garden when you were your dad or your kid, and, or at least that's what I thought. What I thought was normal. But I discovered a website where somebody went and took a picture of basically every feature, every little bridge, every little culvert, every switch, every reroute of the B&O from here to Frederick or DC. And yes, but one of the things that they said was when the B&O was building west, supposedly the city was feared that the B&O would build south and create a competitive port with the port of Baltimore. So they dictated what elevation they had to build. And I don't know how they tied this together. Like, we won't issue you a charter unless you, I don't know the background politics of it. But they required, okay, if you're going to cross the Patapsco, you must do it above this elevation. And so that is what set the Thomas Viaduct in the place where it is.
But playing the long game. Good
Yeah.
job, whoever thought of that.
Right,
And
right.
and then looking at the port today, we know you guys had a tour of Domino Sugar, and certainly seeing what the Dundalk container port looks like.
Right, right. And just wanted to highlight, you know, we have Domino Sugar and Rucker Terminals, which is one of the largest private terminals on the East Coast, which almost went under when they built the 95 tunnel underneath of them. They took some of their land by eminent domain, and a lot of their business disappeared because of it. And that was a low point for them. Not many people know that. And then, of course, we have Vane Brothers, who does bunkering and safety and supplies, and they've been in the city for over 100 years. Those three companies dedicated to our city for over 100 years in, you know, the maritime realm. So pretty cool
Fantastic.
thing.
I always love sailing by Ruckert and seeing that big humongous crane they've got.
Right, right. So if we could go back to, and I wanted to, or not, we don't have to go back, but I wanted to talk about, just since we had that picture up of Seagirt, and you know, we're all so used to seeing these big container ships, and Dolly obviously was one of them. Now she's nowhere near the biggest container ship, because she held what is it, 10 or 11,000 TEUs. So I mean, we have 9 sister ships that come here that bring in 14,000 TEUs. I mean, the Ever Forward isn't even in like the top 10 largest ships anymore. And then Evergreen, in one of their latest classes of ships, the M class, and this little nugget comes from a retired pilot, that supposedly they considered Baltimore and other height restricted ports when they designed this next ship. So this next class of ship, the M class, are the same size as those other 9. So it's a 369 by 51 meters, but they squeezed an extra 1,400 TEUs into it,
That's
into the
incredible.
same space. So the new max, the new highest capacity container ship at Baltimore is 15,432.
So that's in our future, is what you're telling us.
They figured out a way, you know, they figured out a way. Hey, we're going to these ports that have, you know, these height restrictions. How can we engineer to make our ships more efficient and hold more cargo? And they squeezed, you know, another 700 full size containers into the same length and width.
It'll be interesting to see how those larger containers in 2025, when they get a real year, full year again, affect these numbers, but it's just some ballpark numbers of what the port means to the state economically in 2023. A little history of the bridge. In the late 60s, the 895 tunnel was at capacity, and the Maryland General Assembly financed in 1968 the new bridge. It was approved in 1971 and opened for business here in 1977. It's actually designed by an engineering firm here in Baltimore City, and the steel was fabbed up in Pittsburgh.
Interesting.
So here's the dolly on her last ride, leaving the terminal. This is sped up just a little bit, not to time scale. The McAllister tugs peel off.
It's all normal.
Everything's okay right up until this point. And then you can tell this is when the radio traffic is going out, because Eric McAllister does a quick 180. Full speed coming back out, almost as if they're chasing the dolly. By that point, it's too late. And then here comes the cavalry.
Right.
So that famous video, this video, the one that everyone knows. Mike, you've got a little bit of firsthand information with this video.
A little bit.
So it was your camera, your live feed that took this video.
Yes.
And I gotta know, what was it like waking up that Tuesday morning having the most famous video in basically the world?
Right. Well, of course, you get the message on your phone and, oh my God, no. And then you run out to your laptop and look at the live feed that you helped set up. And oh my God, it's true. And then you realize that you're standing there in your underwear and the camera's on, and you're like, okay, can I get a Post-it? And like, certainly didn't think about that, that fast. But I don't know, it was probably the next day and people started calling for interviews, and then you realized how big it was.
So what prompted ship watchers to have a camera there in that spot? Anyways, of all the places, I mean, it's a great vantage point, and you got the primo shot of the year.
Yeah.
What took you to that spot?
A lot of no's and a lot of trying, and a random question to a friend. So one of my admins, who has been with me since the very beginning, and to be honest with you, has put up with a whole bunch of stuff from me, learning my way through, and him helping me along the way. At some point, 3 or 4 years ago, he told me, hey, if you ever figure out a place for a camera, I know a company. I know this lady that runs this company, and they have all these live stream cameras. And so if you figure out a place, let me know. So I asked around and started inside the Key Bridge. And basically, you all know the only things inside the Key Bridge are businesses. And so I kept asking, and not all of them said no immediately. And but I guess, as soon as things went up the corporate ladder, oh, you want to hang a camera and film all our neighborhood, all our other businesses that are involved in the port, and we're going to be basically filming all of our businesses that are near us in the port. Yeah, I don't think we're up for that. And so I kept getting no's. And then was at a function with some friends, just casually mentioned, and this is kind of my personality. So I don't know if you all know, we've done tours at Trade Point. We've done tours at the Coast Guard 3 or 4 times. We've done tours of Vane Brothers 3 or 4 times, Domino Sugar, Rucker Terminals, and it all comes from Mike's not afraid to ask a question. And so it's just my personality. And, my old adage is, I see a crack, I drive a truck through it. So if there's a possibility that I can make something happen, I go for it. So was at a function, and I knew a friend of mine lived closer to the shipping channel than I did. Hey, would you consider putting a camera on the back of your house so we can watch ships go by? Yeah, I'd probably do that. And that was the beginning.
So this camera was filmed from the front yard of one of your friends that you met at a
Yes,
social function.
it's bolted to the back of his house.
Incredible.
Yes.
Absolutely incredible.
Yes.
So you must have found out, were you awoken, or did you get up like it was a normal work day on that Tuesday? And
I think I rolled over and my phone is making a whole bunch of noise, and I'm trying to sleep. And so I'm trying to ignore it. Something told me to look at it. And I did. And I think the bridge is down. What?
Holy
and I
snap.
come running out of here. Yeah.
So 2 o'clock in the morning, you're standing in your underwear, having the most famous,
Well,
the most fit.
I was actually 2 hours late. It wasn't until 4. I didn't know until 4.
You should have gotten up sooner.
Yeah.
So immediately after the wreck, can you speak to any of the parties in the Unified Command, or is this pretty straightforward, do you think?
I really, I mean, I know who the captain of the port is, and I've met Colonel Pachason from Army Corps of Engineers at the pilots meeting. But other than that, I mean, I really.
Go.
Sorry.
So we'll hit a brief.
To all the engineers, designers, and visionaries who had to wait for.
Turn that off. There we go. So a little timeline of the recovery operations, getting an international flavor for it. I thought it was interesting. The cover of a German newspaper was posted on the Facebook page, and that was day one. And then your first post 5 days later, that they were starting demo already, and already had a crane mobilized and starting to tear the bridge down, or remove what was left of it.
Right.
April 2nd, they got their first alternate channel in.
That would have been the Hawkins Point channel, right?
Yes. Yeah. Good.
Mhm.
Good memory. And
15
then
feet.
15 feet, which I think they already had. They just went out and put some channel markers down.
Right. I think they cleared it, right? And then put some temporary markers down and established something so somebody could get through, because before that it was closed.
The entire port was shut. Yeah.
Yes.
On the 25th of April, they had the federal channel under, what was it, like a supervised departure of some vessels?
Yes. So it was 35 feet deep by 300, I think. And of course you had to be cleared, you had to get permission, and then one tug fore and aft with a line escorted. So yes. So, and not just escorting, but tied to the bow and the stern of the ship with a line. That's the way it first opened. Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine being the first ship going back through and the first pilot going back through, knowing the entire world is watching you at your day job?
Oh, really? That doesn't give you a warm fuzzy, does it? And I should know that first ship too, right off the top of my head, but I don't. I mean, I knew it when it happened, and the port posted pictures of it and such. But
on On May 13th, they got rid of what was left of the bridge.
Well, they removed it from the bow.
Right. Yeah.
Just just for accuracy, because there was still plenty of bridge left in the water. But yeah, they wanted to get it off the bow so that they could move the ship.
You're right. Engineer to engineer. And they then pulled her out. That was kind of an interesting day watching those tugs start pulling the dolly out and move her back over to Dundalk. She didn't make it far.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, that was the plan, to go back to Seagirt. And then, of course, a whole bunch of speculation, because I do spend a lot of time on that live stream, and there is a chat. And so people come up with the craziest stuff. But people, we were all curious about, okay, is this thing going to float? And the Army Corps of Engineers said that because of the way they saw the ship act in storms or turbulent weather and some other ways, that they were confident that it was going to float that morning. And I think it took them an hour. And then I don't know if you saw, they're pulling from the stern, and they're kind of going side to side with it to kind of break it loose, I think. And it took them about an hour to get it loose.
It knowing the professionalism involved, it still looked like kind of a goober operation. They were working it back and forth like pushing a car out of the snow.
Well, I thought they were trying to break it free, right? You're trying to break the suction, because it was in, I don't know how many feet of mud, at least 10.
Yeah, they got it. And then
Yep.
June 10th, we were back to normal operations, at least with an open channel.
Mm-hmm.
Back to operations.
Now, was that the yeah, that was the 700 foot, the
Yep.
full width, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because before that, there were a couple different iterations, right? There was 35, and then I think 45, and then 48. And then they went, and I think the Maryland pilot said, hey, talk to Army Corps of Engineers, and said, if we can get, trying to get the number right, I think it was, if we can get 400 feet, then we can run anything through here that we always ran through here. Of course, single file one way, but we can we're willing to bring through any ship. And Colonel Pachason was pretty steadfast in that she really appreciated how open the pilots were, how open and forthright they were about what they really needed. So it wasn't sugar coated. And they said, here's what we needed. Here's what we need for a minimum to get to be able to run things through here, any size, the way we always did. And how much she appreciated that, because it gave them a goal to shoot for, that they could hit and aim for and get to it and be successful at attaining.
Yeah, really speaks to the effectiveness of the unified command.
Mm-hmm.
It pleasantly surprised a lot of people. Did the pilots have a seat at the unified command, or were they serving in an advisory role?
I can't speak to. I
Yeah,
don't.
I wasn't trying.
I would guess the advisory one, but I don't know. And
So,
that's one thing about me. If it's a fact, I'll express it as a fact. If it's not, and if you spent any time on the group, Dave, then you've seen this. I'll say maybe, or I think, because, and so, this is a very semi-casual meeting. But I feel it's, as a representative of the ship watchers, I need to be the same person and express myself the same way I would if we're on Facebook. And facts are important.
You've been very consistent, and that's one of the things I appreciate.
Thank you.
So did a little light reading on the initial NTSB report. I was actually impressed at how quickly the NTSB turned this around. It's already up and posted the initial report, and they tripped a breaker without getting into too much of the sticky details. They lost propulsion and steering by losing that breaker, and then the crew manually forced the breaker closed. They had power, and then they tripped the breaker again and lost power, lost propulsion, lost steerage, and ended up in the bridge. Initial theories, including the fuel, were looked at in this report, and fuel tested out within specification. And that at the time of writing, they're not sure what caused the breaker to trip. Must have some sort of what will cause a breaker. It's a short somewhere in the system, and I don't know if that was found or what the conclusion on that was.
Right. And typically, you all probably know, NTSB final reports don't come out typically like a year. So
More than that sometimes, and
Mhm.
that's certainly one thing that's frustrating in our industry. If there's an accident that takes property or lives, it'd be great to get that information out to the mariners before we forget about it. So
Mhm.
it's the timeliness of this information was well done. So this was the dolly a couple days ago, and this picture was posted by a member of your group. So
Mhm.
thank you for these pictures, James Gray.
Mhm.
And for anyone who has not been paying attention, as of today, she is gone. And I say good riddance. And
Can we
picture
go
of her,
back? Can I talk to those photos for a moment?
of the one at the dock, or
Yeah, go back one more, please.
yep,
Uh, do you have one before that, or that's it?
I do. Yep.
Okay, that one. So I'm not sure if everyone knows, but you can see that whole row of containers is empty or missing. And so they pulled those off. We watched them pull those off on camera while the bridge was still on top of the bow, while she was still stuck there. And from what I recall, is they wanted access to the damage section, right? So you can see how there's equipment there, and so now you've got this huge area where you can see all the damaged stuff, in front of you, and you can have generators in there for cutting tools or whatever you might need. And I just wanted to highlight on the right of that photo, if you here, let's do this. Let's do this. So if we look at where am I trying to go? If you look at this pylon that used to hold up the key bridge, right? This four-legged triangular pylon, that section to the right that's almost horizontal, that big chunk of concrete to the right, yeah, to the right,
Right here.
yep, right there. That is the top. That is, so you have whatever.
So it came down and fell on top of the.
Right. So you have, two sets of legs that are like this and a big giant piece of concrete. And that's what you're looking at in that photo. Right. And just that chunk of concrete. So we had two really large cranes here. They might still be here. The Chesapeake 1000, which can lift 1,000 tons. So
Is
that
that the
chunk,
crane that had the huge
yes, the
dredging
grab,
bucket?
yeah, that thing. And you saw the picture of the guy, and it's this huge thing, and it's like 30 foot tall, and there's this little guy standing there, underneath of it, right? You saw, I think everybody saw that photo, and I wish we just had it while we were talking about it. And so that crane, 1,000 tons, this piece of concrete is way over capacity for either one of the cranes we have in town.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So yeah, if we could go to the next photo. Yeah, there's even better look at it.
So this here's the concrete laying down on the foredeck of the dolly.
Yeah.
It's clever that they turned a row of containers into their contractor area.
Yeah. Yeah. And then let's go to the next one. And so this is one of the legs, this square that you're looking at, this concrete square. And that was at least twice that long and hanging over the side. And so, you all might know this. And so they put this giant diamond saw on it. And that's why it looks like it's cut with a butter knife, because they put this giant diamond saw on it and it keeps going until they cut it in half.
Did they cut that before they moved her, or did they move her over to Dundalk and then cut that piece off?
Oh, that was only maybe a week and a half ago or something.
Okay.
Yeah, that really wasn't that long ago.
Massive piece
Yes.
of concrete.
Yes.
And then this from our friends at WBAL, Chopper 11 recording it going past the Key Bridge successfully this time.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland Transit Administration picking it up, going southbound under the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, looking west on this camera angle. And kudos to the Transit Administration for having the foresight to close the bridge, because they didn't want tourists and gawkers up there causing a traffic accident.
Right. And they put that out on Twitter and Instagram or whatever. Yesterday they were alerting people about it. So everybody had a lot of time to make a plan. So I can hear my guests hooting and hollering outside. So the Orioles must be doing something good, because I know they're outside watching the game.
But it's one point you and I failed to discuss, that the speaking of the Maryland Transit Administration, their police, they were the ones who received the initial Mayday call from the ship that they were out of control, and they managed to clear the bridge of all traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to them for not being able to save everyone, but they certainly saved lives that night.
Right. Yeah.
And
well, and if you do watch the video up close, and I'm sorry to correct you, but there was traffic on the bridge that just barely made it over. But yeah, they stopped any more traffic from getting on, which gosh, how much worse could it have been? It's not.
yeah, and if it was
Something
5
we
o'clock in the
won't think
afternoon
about.
or rush hour, gosh.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And here's the most beautiful picture from marinetraffic.com. This is about 40 minutes old. No, like 60 minutes old at this point. She's passing the Potomac and coming down past Northern Neck.
And almost out of the state.
Yeah. Once they get to here,
Mm-hmm.
they're out of the state. They're Virginia's problem now.
Yeah.
So there's been some discussion, obviously, about replacing the bridge. There's been some concepts put out.
Mm-hmm.
In the last I read, the state put out a request for contractors to provide a plan for putting in a new bridge.
Mm-hmm.
This what we're looking at is just an architectural rendering of what some architect thinks it might look like.
Right. I think this is the Italian
Yeah,
architect group
yeah.
that, yeah. And it's interesting because this picture keeps getting shared on social media, and a lot of people keep mistaking it as, oh, this is the choice, this is the selection. And then, you read down in the comments and everybody's correcting them. No, this is just something that somebody put out. This isn't an official response to the request for proposal, which
Sure.
today's the deadline.
Oh, I got to get that turned in. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Oh,
Hey,
that's
you
due
can do it.
today.
Rock on, dude. If you can do it, rock on. But yeah, today's the deadline, and then they're supposed to select some, a company, whatever, by midsummer.
Okay.
So whatever that comes out to.
And
And it was in the RFP. They did say, and I forget the front of the wording here, but they did say that the companies who are bidding, for lack of a better term, should be familiar with cable stay bridges.
okay, I guess they let it slip what they want out of the bridge.
Yeah, that is in the RFP.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly bring a lot of traffic, construction traffic to Baltimore. And
Absolutely.
for some of us captains, they're going to need launch drivers and people to take the guys to work every day.
Mm-hmm.
And
It
speaking
was
of it,
interesting to see, if I can interrupt for just a sec. It was interesting to see some local normal contributors, right? So like Delaware Launch Service always seems to be the crew boat for Cashman dredging in the winter, right? And
mhm,
then the Cashman, one of their, I forget what the name of it is. The Dale Pyatt, which is named after the owner of the company, was out there dredging, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm used to seeing this piece of equipment. It's out here basically almost every winter, doing maintenance dredging. So we don't see Don John around here much, and they were out in force. And you recognize them by their livery, that light blue color on all their tugs and all their equipment. But it was neat to see some assets that we normally see around here helping out with the recovery.
yeah, yeah. Don John was on the bridge part, if I recall correctly. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. And at the end of the day, you know, the massive damage and economic impact aside, 6 men got up and went to work and didn't make it home that night or that morning. Um, memorials have popped up, and certainly we ask if it's within your means and appropriate for family. There is a donation drive being run for the victims' families, so it's something we encourage you to look into. And again, if it's where your giving is, the families of these men would certainly appreciate that, and I'm sure they need the help. So with that,
That'll be awesome.
uh, we'll open it up to comments and questions.
Yeah,
You got
we have a couple questions in
okay.
the chat. From Hillary, do we know anything about what the cargo was or is?
I'm sure there was a bill of lading, but I know one story about soybeans.
Hmm.
There were hundreds of containers of soybeans, and I guess, so as I always say, when I don't, if I'm on the border, I'll just let you know. So, and I guess when they when they rot, they expand. And so
Ooh.
MEMA was called in and to help manage that and get those containers off. I don't know where the containers were, how they got them off, how they got lucky that they were accessible, or but and it's a local soybean farm in Hampstead that ships out tons of soybeans via container every year that
Wow.
I had no clue that even happened.
Mhm.
So I mean, it could be anything on there, but yeah, I don't have any details other than a list, or I don't know.
If you had something on there, contact your freight forwarder. It's still delayed.
And one of our
Dave,
members,
he cracks himself up.
Yeah.
one
Don't
of our
laugh at my
members
jokes.
asked, can you talk a little bit more about the moment that the world discovered this historic video and what that interaction with the media and various agencies was like?
Oh,
And I had a similar question because I was writing down, how did the authorities learn that your group captured that big moment? I might have missed it when you guys were
that
talking.
is, how did they? I don't have the answer to that. But I did want to do a little bit of clarifying. I did help find this location. I did. I do call it my camera or my baby, because I helped set it up. So I'm very passionate about it. But I did not pay for the camera. I do not own the camera. I do not own the footage. It's all part of Stream Time Live, as you can see up there on the screen right now. So they are the live stream company that set it all up and installed it, and make it work, keep it working on a daily basis. I found the location for them. So, but if you go look at the camera on YouTube, and there's a description section below that, and it has our group mentioned. So that's probably where it happened. And then if I may, these media folks are really good at figuring stuff out, because my wife got a call 6 a.m. that morning. Hello? She said, yes. Can you help get us in touch with Mike Singer?
Wow.
So, I mean, so they figured out it was the ship watchers. They figured out it was me. I guess they right clicked and, oh, that's his wife. And then somehow they got her phone number. And she's like, how in the heck did that, I mean,
Right.
they're inquisitive, man. They figure stuff out.
And you were interviewed by a couple different news sources.
I was.
So to your point of they're quick at figuring things out.
Right.
So what was that experience like? Do you have a lot of experience doing that?
No, pretty much none. Pretty much none. And it's just, I don't hesitate, when opportunities come up. Right. So some of you I'll give you an example. So some of you might be familiar with the Woodwind that sails out of Annapolis. And I got talking to them about ships one day on Facebook because they take photos of them and share them when they're out amongst the anchorage. And the next thing I know, Captain Jen is saying, hey, do you want to come in and do history of shipping on the Chesapeake Bay on our History Mondays? And I said, oh, absolutely, I'll do that. Wait a minute, I got to go look up history of shipping at Chesapeake Bay. Because I didn't know all that. I can talk off the cuff about a bunch of port statistics and things, but I really didn't know a lot about the history of shipping on the Chesapeake Bay. So I said yes, and then okay, I have to go study.
So one of the other questions we have here is, other than the Dolly incident, what other unique situations has that camera captured?
That's a good question.
I mean, I have joined the Ship Watchers group since this.
Mm-hmm.
And
You
I'm sure
and 5,000 other people?
so that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. So since March 26th, I
Mhm.
noticed the other day you're at like 15.7 thousand members.
Yeah,
So
whatever the
what were you when in March 26th approximately? Um,
10, 8, maybe approaching 11.
okay, so it is about 5,000 more. Do
Yes, and
you,
somebody mentioned Alicia earlier, and I'm
yes,
just going to say Alicia has admitted probably at least 4,000 of those people by herself.
wow,
So I couldn't do it without her.
that's awesome. Um, what percentage do you know, and maybe Alicia, since she's on, she might even be able to type this in the chat or come on camera and talk to us, or just speak up, Alicia, if you want. I'm curious about the percentage of like how much globally it goes, because you're a Baltimore and Chesapeake Ship Watchers group, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious because this did go global. It's a historical video that was shared
Mm-hmm.
broadly. How
Mm-hmm.
many more members joined, that are outside of our region, number one, but also maybe from other parts of the world?
That's a good question, and I I'd have to pull it up. I mean, I might be able to try to find it
That's
while
okay.
we're.
I just,
Yeah, we do have members from all over, So,
yeah, yeah.
but since it might be, I don't know if it even provides that kind of breakdown since a certain date. Can you sort by country? Alicia probably knows that off the top of
She
her
did
head.
just put in the chat, we gained about 2,000 the first day. That's
Oh,
amazing. So
and
while,
she was so gracious. She knew that I was like people were hounding me for interviews, and I was going crazy just doing interviews. That she basically took care of it herself,
yeah,
which was
yeah.
amazing.
Another question we have, is it true that the crew is still here and that the dolly left with a different crew?
Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of a backstory on that. So they determined that 8 of the crew members could leave. In other words, their jobs on the ship were far removed enough that they knew that they couldn't have, excuse me, anything to do with what happened. So they were free to go. And then I don't know if you all know the rest of the story. Then the city came in, uh, um, representing people who had been harmed by the bridge, and say, we don't want to let them go. We're afraid to let them go because once they get on the other side of the world, if we've got to ask questions, how do we know that we can ever get in touch with them? And then that morning, the morning when they were going to make the decision and have a court, it wasn't a court, it was a hearing. Like 45 minutes before the hearing, everybody agreed to. There was an agreement, and everybody agreed to it, and they were able to let them go. But the interesting thing is that there was already a courtroom full of people. Everybody had already showed up from everywhere,
Mhm.
and at the last minute, somebody decided, okay, I agree to let them go. Now, the 13 other members are not permitted to leave. They are off the ship now, uh, being put up in an apartment or whatever, and then there is a new crew on board.
Great, thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
And the chat, I'll read it some more questions, but direct everybody to look at what Alicia's putting in. There's about the second biggest country is Canada, with 47 members. 15,389 members are from the USA. 1,003 of those are from Baltimore. 451 Dundalk, and 394 Annapolis. So I must be one of those. So thank you, Alicia, for sharing that. Another question, I was surprised to see that there were still so many containers remaining on the dolly when she departed today. Any thoughts on why they did not remove the rest of the containers?
And according to the Coast Guard, she only clears the bridge by about 10 feet now. So if they took all that weight off, all that cargo, she never would have made it under the Bay Bridge.
I had heard that from other sources too, but I also
Mhm.
saw that posted on the Shipwatchers. Somebody had asked that question today.
Right. And I'm not an expert. I'm just repeating what the Coast Guard said.
Yep, exactly.
And that's good enough for me.
Okay. I think that's all from, we had a couple of questions about the crew and you've already answered that. I think that's all that we have in the chat. So I'll ask anybody else to come off mute and ask your question if you want, or anybody else have anything to ask?
Could
Uh,
I add something?
Sure.
So we were looking at that picture of Seagirt earlier, and I started down the road and then I didn't finish my thought. We're all so used to these big container ships being here. And, we probably think like, they've been here for a really long time. Well, when you look at Seagirt from the camera, which is the vantage point that I have, the berth to the right is berth number 4, where you see those white cranes, and that's actually an older picture because there's 7 blue cranes, but now there's only 3 because so this is pre 2022 when the second set of 4 cranes came in. Anyway, so that cement pad that MSC ship is berthed against, I mean, that's berth 4. That wasn't even finished until 2008. Those white cranes weren't bought until 2012.
Hmm.
So you can see how the growth of the container ship size has really been, a fairly recent thing. And then when Dave was talking about when the Key Bridge was designed and built, right? So they determined the height of that bridge in 1970, maybe, right?
Mhm.
And so those pilings that you're looking at, those triangular pilings on center are 1,200 feet. Inside to inside is 1,100 feet.
Mm.
The shipping channel is 700 feet. So now you're talking about only 200 feet on each side to the inside of that A piling, and now you're talking about ships that are over 1,000 feet long, right? And I don't think they could have anticipated that 50 years ago. Because some people would say, oh, they should have known, or I mean, things have really changed in shipping over the last 50 years.
And Alicia put into the chat, containers for ships were not invented until 1956 by McLean.
Right. It was a guy it was a trucking guy who, and so he was looking at trying to be more efficient, and everything had to be, everything was in a net or on a pallet and had to be individually loaded and unloaded off of trucks. And he's like, how can I get this done faster? And so he came up with a container. I mean, he was the owner of Sealand. Some of you all remember. And so Maersk bought out Sealand, and then eventually Maersk dropped Sealand off the name, and then we kind of forget the origins of it. Yeah.
Alicia's also done a little plug for the weekly podcast, so she put that link in there. I have listened to a couple of them, by the way.
And there's a lot of information in there. The last one was a lot of legal details behind the crew and everything that went into that. There was details about the RFP and how the bridge selection process. Before that, we had Josh Messick from the Baltimore International Seafair Center. So Some of you may know, some of you may not know, they're the local organization in town that visit the ships and make sure that these mariners make sure that they're okay.
That was one of the
Because
ones I watched. Yeah, that was good.
yeah, was that eye-opening? Was that
Yeah,
unbelievable? The stuff
very.
that we found out about those
Mhm.
people, how they work, how they have to send their money home. You know, they get home and their family spent all their money, so back out on the road they go get another job. You're gone for another 9 months. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy when you think about how things work.
Tony, you have a question?
There was some speculation or suspicion that there may have been something done on the Dolly that might have indicated some sabotage was done. Now the ship is gone and the crew is gone, so I imagine that that investigation is over and nothing was found.
I can't speak to that. I don't know. I've not heard anything. Well, I don't want to be disrespectful, but people that say that stuff, I normally just laugh them off and go, you know,
Okay.
come on, stop talking that silly stuff. I mean, but that's me. That's my opinion. Yeah, I haven't heard anything concrete that would point in that direction. But again, I'm not an expert. I'm not NTSB guy. I don't visit the ship. You know.
And we have one more question. I'm on Marley Creek, so I'm in the neighborhood. Where's your friend's home? Is it on the Pasadena side?
It is. It's in Riviera Beach.
In Riviera Beach. All right.
Mhm.
Thank you. That
You're
came
welcome.
from Captain Aaron.
All right.
Dave, anything else?
Nothing for me.
All right.
He's got nothing.
Well, Mike, we want to thank you so much, and Dave too. So Dave, thank you. This was a different kind of format. We don't always do. We've never, I don't know if well, since I've been a member, we've never done the question and answer kind of
Oh, cool.
exchange. So I hope people enjoyed it.
I'm glad we're able to do that.
Yeah. And we really appreciate Alicia's efforts as well for communicating with Dave and suggesting you as a speaker.
Right. And you guys did an awful lot. And you know, we're all busy. We all have busy lives, but I don't know. Mine seems really busy and I really didn't have a whole lot of time. I apologize. And so that's why I was barraging Dave with emails and stuff like yesterday and today. So I want to appreciate all the hard work you all put into this for me. Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you. And afterwards, we do have to edit down the beginning of the recording. So give us a few days to do that. And then after that, we'll have a recording and you'd be able to share it. We have a YouTube channel. So you could share that on Shipwatchers if you wanted to, or with other,
Cool.
with your other, friends and family. So,
Sounds
we
good.
thank you very much. And we know you have guests out there rooting for the Orioles. So thank you for taking your personal time as well, and appreciate everybody who attended tonight. So thank you all.
Thank
And we
Great.
look
you.
forward
Thank you
to
so much
seeing,
for having me.
oh, good. And we look forward to seeing everybody next month on the 4th Monday of July to learn about those nautical charts that are going away, the traditional ones. So tune back in.
Okay, good. So good night, everybody.